And we're now joined by Australian Ambassador to the Philippines, HKU. Ambassador HK, good morning.
Good morning, Karen, and happy Women's Month.
Happy Women's Month to you as well. Well, there's a lot to discuss because that visit actually, that was quite loaded. The president made a historic visit to Australia where he spoke before the Australian Parliament. So let's start first with an overview of what you believe was achieved in that visit.
Thank you, Karen. You know what? I'm still buzzing with excitement from the afterglow of what was a very successful twin visits. I like the way you put that. And they were both really important, of course. The first part of the visit with the guest of government invitation from Australia was a historic moment because it was the first time that a Philippine president addressed our joint parliament. So it wasn't just the House of Representatives members, but also our senators who joined in the House of Representative chamber with the president addressing all of them. And let me tell you, his speech was so powerful and fully supported by both sides of the parliament, both the government as well as the opposition party. And I think that's really significant that what we are seeing here is all Australian politicians united in their support for the Philippines, seeing the Philippines as one of our most important strategic partners. And that came through loud and clear. And you also mentioned the MOU, but you know, the people interaction in the margins of this visit was where you could really see the closeness and the strength of our bilateral relationship. Karen, when the President and First Lady arrived in Canberra, we had a lineup of welcoming party, one of which was actually a minister, a very senior minister. Minister Ed Husic, Minister for Science and Industry, welcomed the president and the first lady in Tagalog. Just like that, he greeted them in Tagalog. And the president said, how do you speak Tagalog so well? Well, he said 25% of his electorate are Filipino Australians. Goes to show how deep our engagement is and connection is, especially through people-to-people links. So these were some of the major things that were really achieved through the Guest of Government program that took place in Canberra. But to give you an overview of the second element of the twin visits was the special Australia-ASEAN Summit to commemorate our 50 years of dialogue partnership. In fact, Australia was the first dialogue partner to ASEAN because even way back then, we understood the importance of ASEAN centrality to secure the kind of region that we all want to live in, one that is prosperous, stable, peaceful, right? And this is where the whole special summit came together. And what was really exciting was that all leaders, but Myanmar, of course, all leaders turned up. I think when we were preparing this, you know, we recognized that all leaders are busy. And we thought that maybe one or two may not be able to make it, but they all turned up. And I think that shows how significant Australia is in ensuring we become a very strong, long-standing partner to ASEAN for the region that we all want to live in. And what I want to also highlight as part of the special summit is how well the Philippines was represented. It was mind-blowing. The kind of marginal, events in the margins of the summit, as well as participation to the main summit activities was done with gusto. I believe the Philippines had one of the biggest delegations, including from the business community. And I think that's a very important point to make because the summit was all about increasing our trade and investment with ASEAN and ensuring business is very much a part of this strategic partnership that we have entered into.
All right. Now, several points there. Let's start first with business. The president has bagged over $1.5 billion in investment deals in Australia in areas of renewable energy, recycling, and health. Let's talk a bit about this. where do you see Australia coming into the Philippines in the next few years under this administration?
Yes, I was part of that big business forum where the president gave a speech and we witnessed all the MOUs. And they are very exciting, as you said, in the area of really cutting edge technology in areas like green energy, in areas like recycling, really important areas for the Philippines. Where we see Australia engaging more actively in, it's all set out in our Southeast Asia Economic Strategy to 2040. And I think in one of our previous interviews, I think I may have even mentioned this, Karen, but this is actually the strategy that the Australian government has launched in September when the Prime Minister was here in Manila. And as part of that, we have identified a number of sectors that we would like Australian businesses to invest into in the Philippines. Those areas include green energy, because energy transition is going to be very important for the Philippines, as well as everyone else in the world, in fact. We also see huge potential in mining, because Australia has shown that sustainable mining can contribute to the wealth of your whole country and lift everyone's living standards, especially those that are vulnerable. And we also identified food and agriculture as another area where we feel Australia can actually contribute a great deal. And in fact, we are already doing some amazing agricultural research here in the Philippines, where President and I also participated together to review the progress of Soil Health Laboratory. Another area we've identified is education and skills. As you know, we have many Filipino students who already go to Australia to receive education, but we want to expand on that and make sure we're providing transnational degrees in partnership with the Philippine universities and institutions, but also actually really focus on skills development so that we can actually help the Philippines ensure that your high school graduates even are job ready. So there are huge areas of potential there that we have identified in our Southeast Asia economic strategy.
Okay. Now, in terms of maritime cooperation, in the president's speech, he said that, of course, in ASEAN, Australia has consistently supported all ASEAN-led mechanisms through these 50 years. The president in Parliament opened his speech by saying the Philippines is now in the front line, right, of a geopolitical issue in the South China Sea. Let's talk about essentially the maritime cooperation, and I think the support Australia has always given, of course, but has strengthened even more after the president's visit.
Absolutely. And that's what the MOU on civil maritime cooperation is all about. It's to express our absolute commitment and intention to do more in this very important space. Excuse me. So seen how our defense cooperation has been in place for decades.
Yes.
We have always helped the Philippines in countering terrorism, especially with Marawi siege unfolding. Now, we have worked really hard to put that under control. And now what we are seeing is the need to shift to help the Philippines to deal with external threats, including in the maritime space.
Yes.
Defense and security cooperation is very strong. And as you would recall, we did our first joint maritime combined activity in November, where we actually, did joint patrol and exercise in West Philippine Sea. We are going to build on that, and we are going to ensure that there are more activities like that coming. And I think both our leaders have expressed that it's really important that this is also done with other like-minded partners as well, those that actually believe in the rules-based order and who wants to be part of the group that protects it. So that's a really important component of defense and security cooperation. But this maritime cooperation framework also allows us to actually cooperate in areas around maritime environment.
Yes.
Understanding the international law that guides the maritime domain. So these are all the other elements of our cooperation that will only deepen further as we move forward with our very exciting strategic partnership.
Yeah. And interesting, before we leave this topic, is the Philippines, of course, has a mutual defense treaty with the United States, but it has a visiting forces agreement with Australia that was ratified by the Senate in July 2012, right? I believe. And then now is the signing of a maritime cooperation. Is it possible, are you seeing that it could move, that Australia and the Philippines will have its own version of the mutual defense treaty?
Well, we should never cross out anything.
Yeah.
I can say currently there's no conversation about that, but you have to remember we've just signed the strategic partnership,
Yes.
and when the four ministers, that's the foreign minister and trade minister, along with their counterparts, met in Adelaide, they came up with a very long plan of action that both countries have now committed to implement. So we've got a lot of work ahead of us. And I would say what we need to do is maximize the impact and the effectiveness of our strategic partnership on all fronts, and ensuring that under that framework, not only do we further strengthen government-to-government cooperation, but ensure there's much greater business-to-business cooperation and activities, all underpinned by strengthening vibrant people-to-people links that we're seeing between our two countries.
All right. Now, Australia has always been, I wouldn't want to say a big brother, that would be incorrect, but Australia's been quite consistent and active in supporting ASEAN. That's one. Australia's always been consistent in speaking for the rule of law, right? Now, in 2018, an independent think tank, the Australian Strategic Policy Institute, actually recommended that Australia seek ASEAN membership by 2024. So that's this year, right? In 2016, the former Australian Prime Minister, Paul Keating, suggested that Australia joined ASEAN. And you have the ASEAN Summit in Australia just recently. Then you have President Marcos Jr. already issuing a statement that he supports Australia joining ASEAN. So why, I want to know right now, where does Australia stand? Is Australia proactively wanting to join ASEAN at this point? And if so, why?
Well, Australia is very committed to working with ASEAN, but ASEAN is an organization in itself. So it's not really up to Australia as a non-member, but dialogue partner to push on this issue one way or another. Of course, I listened with great enthusiasm and interest what President Marcos said about Australia. And I think that also goes to show how much the president thinks of Australia as the Philippines' true friend and partner, that he would be pleased to have Australia as an ASEAN member who can actually work with the Philippines to push for things that are of common interest to both our countries. But once again, I think, it's really up to the ASEAN members as to what the composition of their membership will be. But they can always be reassured of Australia's commitment to working closely with ASEAN for the kind of region that we all want to live in.
All right. And I think before we go, I think it's also congratulations to you, Ambassador HK, because the president's visit happened under your watch. So I would have to say that as a woman ambassador, that's a feat as well.
Thank you so much. I feel very lucky. I feel like so much has happened in the last 18 months I've been in this role. And just before we close off, I just wonder whether I can mention few announcements that were made
Please do.
in the
Yeah.
market of the ASEAN Summit that is of great value to the Philippines. So Australian government has also announced a $2 billion Southeast Asian investment facility. That means Australian companies looking to invest into the Philippines, they can now get financing help from the Australian government. As part of that, what we have also established is what's called an investment deal team across Southeast Asia. And in the Philippines, we will also have a spoke of this deal team with 2 extra staff whose responsibility will be to monitor and research bankable projects in the Philippines, and then present that to Australian businesses who may be ideal for investing into that space, and actively assist them along with the Philippine government through things like green lane investment lanes, things like ARTA's excellent work in cutting red tape to make these investments happen. And as part of that, Australian government announced that the CEO of Macquarie Group will be the champion for the Philippines. Business.
Oh, is that right?
Right. Now, this is a big deal. And she actually...
Are they coming? Is the group
They're
coming?
coming soon, at least before the end of this year.
Yeah.
And in fact, while we were in Melbourne, President met with the CEO and Shamara, and they had an excellent conversation around how the business champion in combination with the Australian embassy can really drive this very much needed investment from Australia to the Philippines. So I just wanted to just touch on a few of those really exciting outcomes that were announced during the summit.
On that note, I want to thank you so much for joining me today, and congratulations as well, Australian Ambassador to the Philippines, HKU.